So one of my favorite sayings is, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. I love this saying. I just love it because it means that we can always change our perspective and change our perception of what happens. This means that a mistake can become a learning experience. This means that a problem can become a challenge. That's beautiful. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And it's so true. So I grew up in the 1960s. Anyone else grew up? And so a lot of times I'll be with my contemporaries and we'll say things like, you know what, life was better in the 1960s. You know, it was simpler. We were outside playing all the time. We weren't inside on our computers. We were out riding our bikes and playing. It was a better time. It was a simpler time. Is that true? When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Well, it was a simpler time. In the 1960s, we had black and white TVs with rabbit ear antennas, right? Tinfoil at the end of the antennas. We had maybe 2 or 3 channels, that was it, right? So of course we were out playing outside all the time. We had nothing to watch inside, right? When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Was it a better time? It depends on how you look at it. I grew up in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin in the 1960s. Lots of mosquitoes during the summer. So they used to spray for mosquitoes. They would actually spray DDT out in our neighborhood, fog up the neighborhood to kill the mosquitoes. And I'm not kidding, we'd be out and it, woo! I can't see you. Out playing in the DDT. It explains a lot now, though, doesn't it? In the 1960s, people smoked everywhere. Doctors smoked in the hospitals. They smoked while they made their rounds. Nurses smoked at the nursing station. Sometimes patients smoked in their rooms. When you change the way you look at things, the things that you look at change. My mom was a nurse in the 1960s, and she said, well, when the moms had their babies, we would give them a big glass of beer to let their milk down. So technically, your first drink could have been a Bud, right? Up until 1965, a man had the legal right to discipline his wife as he saw fit. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And this is so important because your thoughts create your emotions. So I think often we believe that an activating event causes us to have an emotion. Something happens and we have an emotion because of that event. But Dr. Aaron Beck, who created cognitive behavioral therapy, said, no, it is not the activating event that causes you to have an emotion. It's how you think about that event. So let's take an example of a tornado. Say a tornado wipes out this little town. No one dies, but people have lost everything. And the next day, there's a television reporter interviewing 2 of the men who survived it. And the first man interviewed said, I'm devastated. I've lost everything. I didn't even want to get out of bed this morning. I have no hope. I'm done. And the second man interviewed said, it's devastating. We've lost everything. But you know what? My entire family survived. Even my 15-year-old dog survived. So I got to believe that we are meant to be here. We're going to figure it out. We're going to rebuild. And we are going to make our lives bigger and better than ever before. Same activating event. Different emotional responses. And that is because it is not the activating event that causes you to have an emotion. It's how you think about the event. And that's where you have power. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So I'll give you an example from my life. How many people have been divorced? All right, so when you got divorced, did you lose weight? All right, one time in the back of this room, this lady jumped up out of my audience and she said, "Yeah, I lost 230 pounds of dead weight. That's what I lost." So it was a devastating time. It was hard to get divorced. I brought the kids back over here. I traded my half of the business and was able to bring the kids back to the United States to rear them. But it was a hard time. And I lost a ton of weight. And my ex-husband, my kid's father, Kurt, was coming to see the girls for the first time. And we hadn't seen him for a couple of months. So I got all foxed up to see him. I did. I put those white strips on my teeth. And I had a fake tan. I had the girls up and out. And I'm going to tell you, it wasn't because I wanted him back. It was because I wanted to make him suffer when he saw me. So I'm feeling like I'm looking really foxy. I'm feeling really good. And I take my kids to the airport, and it's a small airport. We park, and we have to cross the street to get to the terminal. And we're waiting as we cross in front of the terminal. We're waiting for some cars to stop so we can cross. And we're waiting, and I have my girls in each hand, and no cars are stopping. And finally, this big beat-up old pickup screeches to a halt. And this guy in the pickup waves us across to cross the road. And I'm crossing the road with my girls, and I'm thinking, he probably stopped because I look so good. So as I'm crossing, I give him my parade wave. And this guy leans out of his pickup. He has one tooth he borrowed from his neighbor, okay? And he yells, "Hey, you girls, take care of your grandma now, you hear?" And my girls are laughing. "Mom, did you hear what that guy said? He thought you were a grandma. That's so funny." I'm like, "Oh, that's funny. Yeah, that's funny. You're grounded. Is that funny?" So let's take the example of that fool in the pickup. Oh, that blind fool in the pickup, right? If I decided to steer my thoughts down a path that said, "Wow, I must look awful. I got all foxed up. I bet I look like a fool. That guy actually thought I was my kid's grandma." What would my emotional response be? I'd feel badly about myself, right? What if instead I decided to steer my thoughts down the path that said, "That is a great story. And guess what happened to me, so I get to tell it on stage"? What would my emotional response be? I'd be happy. I get to decide where I steer my thoughts. And if I start steering them down a path that doesn't work for me, it's up to me to back my thoughts up and steer them down a path that helps me, that promotes me, that makes me feel positive. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. We can always change our perspective. Ask yourself, how else can I see this? Change your perspective so you can change your perception of what happened. It's powerful. It means that a mistake can become a learning experience. It means a problem can become a challenge. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.